A very good evening to all those who have joined this webinar from Business Standard. On behalf of Business Standard and SOA deemed to be university, I welcome you all. The world is witnessing the chaotic ambit of COVID-19. COVID-19 has a negative impact on most of the country's economy, and India has not excused. We too are facing a massive setback in our economy due to COVID-19. PS, in association with Institute of Business and Computer Studies, SOA, deemed to be university, is pleased to take this pertinent issue and enlighten the august gathering about broader aspect of the impact of the pandemic on Indian economy. Today on the panel list, we have as a moderator, Professor Anup K. Samanthare. He is serving as Dean at the Institute of Business and Computer Studies, IBSC, SOA, deemed to be university. As on the panel, we also have Professor S. Sudhalal Muthu, presently serving as Professor and HOD Banking Technology, School of Management, Pondicherry University. He has published more than a dozen of outstanding research articles in reputed journals in the area of banking and finance, financial institutions and markets, financial information system, software project management, etc. He is engaged in a number of administrative positions at Pondicherry University. Next is Professor Debbarata Das, presently serving as a professor at Department of Business Administration, Tezpur University. He has good number of research publications in the field of financial management, microfinance, banking and capital markets. He is also working as coordinator of UGC SAP at Tezpur University. Then we have Dr. Babani Shankar Rao. He is serving as assistant professor in finance at Faculty of Management Science, IBSC, SOA, deemed to be university. He too has published research articles on financial derivatives, bank and finance, commodity derivatives in Scope and ABDC with high impact factor journals. He has coordinated several academic conferences in his grade. All the panelists today have got lot of scholarship, lot of rewards and lot of recognitions. If I have to speak of all of them, I'll be eating on their time. So I would like to cut myself short and invite Professor Anup K. Samanthare, our moderator for the show today, to take over the charge. To you, Anup sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll continue with our speakers, with our panelists. Let me introduce. This is our second attempt with Business Standard, collaboration with Business Standard. I thank also the Business Standard for conducting this. And here we are again back with our students, with our faculty from all over India. Different faculty members are there. Major faculty members are from Orissa, different institutions and universities, and also from different universities of India. And this is a discussion where we are focusing on this particular situation. What will be the economic condition after the situation? What impact it has left with the pandemic? Now, may I request Professor Sudhalal Muthu to continue with his speech, and he may also use certain presentations.
Yes.
And he can continue now. So it is up to Professor Sudhalal Muthu.
Thank you, Professor Anup Kumar, and thank you very much to Babani, and I am happy to meet Professor Das, Mr. Jayaraman, and other Angelo Diaz from Business Standard and other Business Standard people. And good morning to all of you, and happy to meet all of you through this online mode. So now I'll move on to my presentation. As rightly introduced by Professor Anup Kumar, this is a management development program organized by this OBCS, the Shiksha Anushandan deemed to be university, along with the Business Standard, in the title COVID-19 and its impact on Indian economy, right? So in that, specifically, I'm going to discuss about with this agenda. These are all the points I'm going to cover in the first 30 to 35 minutes. Then I leave the sessions to Professor Das. Then we'll listen to Q&A, right? Viewers, please. Everybody, we are talking about this COVID-19. You know well about that. It is the infectious disease caused by most recently discovered coronavirus. So coronaviruses are a large family of viruses, but the new name SARS-CoV-2, that is severe acute respiratory syndromes coronavirus 2. Here I want to say that this COVID-19 is a massive accident for the world. Not only the country, it is a massive accident for the world. It is going to give lot of impact. The possibilities for more damages to most of the countries and most of the cities. If it gives the damages and continuous damages, then we can call it as a crisis. That leads to crisis. Friends, you see, whenever we use the term crisis, immediately we can recall the meaning like that. Crisis is a situation in which the economy of the country experiences a sudden downturn. Right. This crisis, COVID-19 related crisis, also going to downturn the economy, because this going to create lot of economic impact. The economy is going to face an economic crisis with likely experiences, falling of GDP, drying up of liquidity, rising prices due to inflation, or falling prices due to deflation. So, an economic crisis can take the form of recession or depression. You know about that. Recession is the short term. If it continues for more than a year, it leads to depression. So whether it is a recession or depression, we have to wait and see. But certainly, we are going to face certain kind of impact. There is a possibilities of impact is more due to these crises. Friends, crisis.
So there is some audio disturbance. Yeah. Okay. Now it's clear.
My audio is okay, sir. Is it okay?
Yeah. Now it's okay. Audio is okay. Yeah.
Right. So crisis is not new to the world. Earlier, across the world, there are a lot of crises faced by the human beings. So the first crisis is not in 2008 crisis, the crisis of 3rd century. To see some other points, I don't want to go into deep. That 3rd century crisis that occurred due to so many reasons, but one of the reasons you see, friends, here, that one of the reasons is the disease called the plague. So plague is the disease that causes the occurrence of first crisis in the world, then followed by various crises, the economic crisis, political crisis, bank-related crisis. I want to list out one by one here, but I don't want to explain all these things. The 14th century crisis, we call it as banking crisis. Then 1904, we call it as financial crisis. Then credit crisis in 1972. Then oil price shock in 1973. So the Wall Street crash in 1929, that we call it as Great Depression. Then the Black Monday, we call it on October 1987. Then the Asian crisis in 1997. Russian crisis, we call it the global crisis in 1998. Then dot-com bubbles in 1999-2000, then the very recent, the previous one, financial crisis in 2008. Then now we are facing that COVID-19, that is the new crisis due to this coronavirus. So what I want to list out all these things, don't get any panic. These kind of events, disease-based or economic activity-based or the bank failure-based or stock market-based or economic failure-based, that crisis is common in the world. People that faced all type of such crises earlier and successfully they came back and successfully that moved into this stage, they successfully managed the crisis. So these are the crises, various crises that faced by the world in from 3rd century onwards. Now it is COVID-19. But here I want to list out some of the shift, a paradigm shift, some of the changes, the model changes or paradigm changes taking place that especially in India and across the world I want to list out. Especially in India, you see, we know well about colonialism. That 200 years we were in colonialism. We learned a lot from that colonialism. We worked on that colonialism. Then you see the mechanized capitalism, that runs 200 years. Then the socialism of Marxism, that 50 years. Then the capitalism, that 24 years. Sir, somebody else looked at my video, audio.
Sir, we can hear you, but the audio is breaking. Voice is breaking.
Why, sir?
Now it's clear. Hello.
It's clear now?
Yeah. Now it's clear. Yeah. Even in the chat box, people are putting sound is not clear.
Okay.
Yeah. Now it's clear, Professor. Yeah.
Sir, you can. You can continue, sir.
Right, sir. So then you see after 1991, the experience of globalization that runs 25 years. Now even we are talking about globalization, but whether the globalization is available or not, that is a question mark. A separate session is required for the topic. Then these paradigms were operated, and in fact all this paradigm were collapsed also over a period of time. And recently you see the supply chain model of China that went across the world, that also now slowly collapsed. So now the recent one I want to say that new COVID-19 forced all of us to think about a new model of economy, a new paradigm shift, a new system, a new business model. That thinking that brought by, that introduced by this COVID-19, we have to think about a new model, a new system, a new model of economy because of that. This is an introduction I want to share with you. Now I come to this COVID. But the topic given today is COVID-19 and its impact on Indian economy. We can study only the possible impact. But we are now experiencing COVID-19. We have not came out of that. We have not overcome that. So we are experiencing now. But how that COVID-19 going to affect the economy and other sector? That is the point. Here, before moving into that, the pre-COVID that situation, before COVID-19, that means before February 2020, that what was the Indian economy? How that Indian economy, I want to say something related to that. Is there any problem, sir, regarding that audio? Is there any problem regarding that audio?
Sir, now it is clear, but when you move, no, there is a disturbance.
Okay.
Okay.
Indian economy, you see, is not weak economy. I want to say that. But friends, but it is weakening economy. Why I want to say that? That statistics that February 2020 statistics, the significant fall in our growth rate. Yeah, 6 years low of 5% GDP. Not only that, the consumer goods growth rate minus 1%. Capital goods growth rate minus 10%. Export growth negative 1%. Import growth minus 6%. So these are all some of the benchmark indicators that are recorded in 10 years low, according to the statistics. Okay, so these are all 10 years low. That is pre-COVID situation. Before COVID-19 situation, the Indian economic situation, what it indicates, so Indian economy is weakening, but we are not a weak economy. It is a weakening economy that is an indication. See that this is the GDP growth rate, the year-on-year percentage growth rate based on the constant prices. That indicates the GDP that are slowly coming down. Okay, that too, that is in the last 2 months, it is 3.1%. So that is the indication of the possible impact of COVID-19. Okay, then what it indicates is in pre-COVID, what it indicates even before COVID-19, lower economic activity. Everybody talking about slow economic, lower demand, and low consumption, and the low supply, and there is no much economic activity. Like that, everybody talking about this low economic activity, that we get low economic activity during the month of December, January, and all. From industry side, there is no much investments. There is no much working capital requirements from the industry side. And less borrowings, some of the industries, no otherwise called less borrowings from the industry side from the banks. So industry also, they don't want to improve or expand the business. That was the situation prevailing in before COVID. From the customer side, they don't want to spend the future income. That means they don't want to borrow the money and spend. That was the situation. So that means people returning money to the bank instead of borrowing money from the bank. So that this situation indicated the potential for growth is under stress. That was not a happy situation. Friends, this is all pre-COVID situation I want to highlight based on the data and based on the facts. Now, regarding the indication related to the banks, since I belong to the banking department, technology department, some of the 2 or 3 parameters related to the pre-COVID indicators I want to share with you. Bank credit growth rate, one of the important indicators. What was that? The latest numbers released by the Reserve Bank of India shows that loans grew by just 6.3% year-on-year growth during the latest fortnight ended February 14, 2020. That statistics shows that bank credit growth, the loan growth, only 6.3% up to February 2020. This first fiscal year is expected to end with a credit growth of 6 to 7%, which will be the lowest in 48 years, according to the Economic Times. GDP in the last fourth quarter 4.1, but the first quarter of 2020 3.1, already I have shown in that diagram. The nominal GDP 10%. India. The bank credit growth rate is less than the nominal GDP. See that normally the bank credit normally used to be more than the nominal GDP. That is the expectable trend. That only gives a good result. But the bank credit rate is less than nominal GDP of India. It was a very, very rare situation. Again, these are all the pre-COVID situations. I want to share with you. Right? Then come to very, very important point. The bank indicator related to non-performing assets. Up to March, 11.5%. That means this 8,95,601 lakh crores, the NPA in Indian banks. But in March 2019, that reduced to 7.27 lakh crores. That means 9.3% NPA. Some of the earlier statistics also graphically represented in that slide. So NPA also, everybody knows about that non-performing assets. Huge non-performing assets. That also one of the problems faced by Indian banking sector as well as the economy during the pre-COVID situation. Then another one is the capital adequacy in banks. Capital adequacy, everybody is talking about whenever the NPA increases, in order to safeguard the banks according to the prudential norms, the Basel norms, banks are asked to maintain adequate capital to avoid the bank failures, to strengthen the economy as well as the banks. So now you see, the Basel suggested the banks to maintain 8% CAR, that is capital adequacy ratio. RBI suggested 9%, but we are in good position. We were in good position. Our public sector banks maintain more than 12%. We have conducted a separate study. One of my students did a research on that. That capital adequacy in public sector banks and an average 12%. So that is good. And the private sector banks, that also they are maintaining good capital adequacy, that is 16 to 23%, that it varies according to the banks. So capital adequacy, that and all good, that properly maintained by the Indian banking sector. Then come to the technology adoption, the digitalization, but that from Narasimhan Committee suggestion onwards, from 1990 onwards, Indian bankings, they very well adopted the technology.
Blue chip,
Hello?
Hello? Yes, sir.
So some disturbance? Is there any?
No?
Is there any disturbance?
No, sir. No, sir. Now your voice is very clear.
Okay. So technology adoption is another very important, the positive points related to Indian banking sector. So Indian banking sector very well adopted the digital technology and offered a variety of digital services. Okay. Then another, this in the previous, the capital adequacy and the technology adoption and all very positive points. But the previous credit growth rate is not up to that level. At the same time, another point is lot of bank frauds. So the Ministry of Finance recently, they mentioned during the last Lok Sabha meeting that the scheduled commercial banks and the select financial institutions have reported the fraud to the tune of 1,13,374 crores up to September 2019. That is also one of the very worrying input. Okay, so now see that these are all the pre-COVID situation. Why specifically I want to mention this bank-related data is, I want to share one important information to all of you. Friends, you see, across the world, that industry they are adopting this, the market-driven economy. But India not adopt that market-driven economy. India adopts the bank-driven economy. So the role of bank is very, very important for the economic activities, economic developments. I want to say one small statistic to all of you. The market listed companies in India contributes only 4 to 5% of the Indian GDP. Market listed companies operates contribute 4 to 5% only to that 5% of Indian GDP. But unlisted companies, MSME sectors, they contribute 50% to Indian GDP. The 50% of Indian GDP contributed by these unlisted companies and MSME. Not only that, they also contribute 80% of the employment. So that is why you see that for all this MSME and this unlisted companies, they are availing finance from the banks, not from the markets. But other countries, the industry, they avail the funds from the market. But India, they avail the funds from the banks. That is the difference. In 1995, 8% of the bank loans are development loans. But now, 58% of the bank loans are development loans. The economic development, business development loans, long-term development loans. Unfortunately, we merged commercial banks and the development banks. But these Basel norms, what we are talking about, the Basel norms and all, so that the norms not applicable to the development banks. Mostly it is applicable to the commercial banks. But we are talking about the Basel norms. But in India, that we combine the development banks and the commercial banks merged together, and it is a bank-based economy, bank lending-based economy. So that input, along with that, I want to share with you. Why? That for the development of economy, the role of banks is very that important. Okay. Now, before moving into this present crisis, I have experienced very much about 2008 crisis. I have listed a lot of crises in the earlier slides, but personally, I experienced in 2008 this sublending crisis, that we call it as Lehman Brothers crisis, and that housing loan bubbles, that 2008 crisis. Now 2020, this COVID-19 crisis. So just I want to compare these two things. 2008, when we were facing the crisis in 2008, at that time, our economy was very good. In all macroeconomic factors, indicators, at that time was very good. Okay, so the crisis was severe in 2008, but we were in good position. Our macros are in good position. So we managed efficiently in 2008 crisis. Our economic indicators are very strong at that time, just now I mentioned. But now in COVID-19, before the COVID-19, where we are now, that is why, to make you to know the pre-COVID situation only, some of the economic indicators, as well as the bank lending indicators, and the role of bank in the economic development, all these things that I have highlighted you. So back in COVID-19, the crisis is not a new one. Please, friends, listen. We already faced this various crises. I list out many, not a new one. But now we are facing not only COVID-19 crisis, especially in India. I want to say that we are facing multiple crises, not one crisis, not only COVID. At this point, I want to highlight this to all the young students. We are facing 3 different crises. One is COVID. Another one is, that is locusts. This is going to affect the agricultural economy in India, farmers in India. The third one is that the border tension, Chinese border submission. So, coronavirus, the locust attack, and the Chinese border threat. So, in three different dimensions, so we are now facing the threats, crisis, and three attacks that the Indians now we are facing. So, that you see, friends, the current situation is different. The last wave of the crisis may be more, it not affect the one sector, not going to affect one sector or few sectors, it is going to affect many sectors, and some of the sectors is going to that affect more, they are going to suffer more. And not only that, it affects the physical health as well as the mental health of each and every one. That is a very, very notable point here. So this virus is a disease-based, it affects the economy, all the sectors, so it affects the income, it affects the health, and if income and the health affects, automatically it affects our mind. If mind also it affects, then it will give very, very bad, very disastrous effect. But one thing you please keep it in your mind. Whenever we are facing the crisis always creates new opportunities. Now you see, earlier, if this ICPS wants to, this university wants to conduct this kind of annual discussion, they used to call the faculty like me or Professor Das to the concerned place. We used to travel and we used to stay there and we move around the institution. And then in a seminar hall, we used to deliver the presentation and interact with the students. Now, they are now realizing the situation. Educational institutions now find an alternative way like this webinar, online presentation. We well accustomed to that, and we identify the new opportunity of this online mode and explore it. Students also enjoyed. Now I could find more than 200 participants. They are listening to that panel discussion across India. So it is for education institution like that, that kind of new alternative opportunities available for each and every that aspect sectors. So what I want to highlight, these kind of crises always creates a new better opportunities. We have to identify that opportunity and overcome the difficulties and succeed in our life. So we have the big power, especially Indians, we have big power. We can overcome all this and we can succeed in all our attempts. That I want to highlight. So now I'll come back to this. Pre-COVID. Yes, please.
Sir, kindly conclude.
Yeah. Now, going to give some significant impact on these sectors now, and possible impact, that is a main point, that is a topic I will tell you now. This possible impact is borrowers may face a problem in repayment of loan. The demand may be very less, industry may not get the income, industry requires short-term as well as the long-term funds to that come back to the business, but on the other hand, banks may not be in a position to meet the customer requirements. That and also leads to NPA and solvency problems. So the possible impact in the industry regarding the 3 M's, money is going to be the problem, then manpower due to the migration of migrant workers, manpower, then due to the supply chain, material also going to be the problem for the industrial. That is possible impact regarding the industry. Especially regarding the banking sector, that liquidity is going to be the problem, and the NPA and the continuous liquidity and the NPA problem leads to the solvency problem also. So by noticing that, our government of India and RBI taken some good initiatives, that first, that moratorium that delay in payment, first 3 months they given, then another 3 months. So 6 months moratorium they given, then area of liquidity adjustment facilities through adjusting the repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, and others given. Then inflation control activities they have taken, rupee stability activities they have taken. I skip all these things. These are all the activities taken by that RBI. So the government stimulation in terms of labor, land, law, and liquidity for package announced by the government, that is also very good. RBI initiative is also very good. And but as I mentioned, the RBI announces the moratorium for borrowers, and it is for the borrowers, not for the depositors, but it helps the borrowers to reduce their personal financial commitments. But bankers, they may face the problem. That is why the liquidity says they are given to overcome this. Strengthening bank capital, it is also an important role of the government, and the prudential norms also be changed as mentioned accordingly to the Indian situation, and identify the potential industry and identify the good credit proposal. That is very, very important. Identification of good credit proposals for that artificial intelligence, the data analytics, and the data engineering, the technology is going to play a very, very important role in that area. If the banks apply the technology and identify the good credit proposal, that will give a good result to the banks. And the good quality, high growth automatically helps to bring. And to overcome this, bank requires right technology. Already they are having. In addition to that, as I mentioned, that AI, artificial intelligence, and the blockchain technology to overcome the bank frauds, and for that better handling the credit analysis, credit risk management, the AI, and the data analytics that are all required. Right governance also better. Now also we have the good governance, but little bit improvement. And the quality manpower and ability and willingness, that point is, they have the ability, but sometimes they are not having the willingness to learn because of these possibilities of MBA problems. So India having the strength, we have the young manpower, we have the good natural resources, the agricultural based the country we have, and we have very strong MSME sector. And apart from that, we have a good culture, we have good ethics, we have good values, and we want to find out here the Albert Einstein. We owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discoveries have been made. So it is the statement made by Albert Einstein that adds a lot of value to the Indians. Accordingly, the Max Muller said, if I am asked which nation had been advanced in the ancient world, I respect the educational culture, India. He mentioned, this is similarly Mark Levin. But in the Bill Gates, Indians are the smartest people in the world. So we are the smartest. We can able to handle that situation very well. We can able to compare. As I mentioned again, the crisis and difficulties always creates a better opportunity. That better opportunity is available. Looking for the better opportunity, then I will hand over the sessions to the moderator now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Of course, there was some problem in sound. I thank. So just let me summarize the whole thing. Whatever discussion was there, it is relating to, sir told about different paradigms, because we shift from colonization to globalization, and Indian economy is gradually it's a weakening economy, and because of the pandemic, the economy is again become unstable, and the pre-COVID indicators in banks are also explained about that. And we found that in his discussion, he put about the NPA and the capital adequacy in banks. He also mentioned about the banking frauds. And finally, the crisis always create new opportunities. That is the hope that he has mentioned. So with that, we go for the second panelist, that Professor Das. And Professor Das will be again telling you about this Indian economy. And I request Professor Das to continue. Now it is over to Professor Das. Sir, please unmute. Sir, please unmute. Unmute. Yes, sir.
So
Please
thank you very much, Professor Samantarai, Professor Muthu, Dr. D.S. Raut, Business Standard, Mr. Agnello, and others. Dear participants, Professor Muthu has already nicely set the tone of the discussion. Starting from the history of economic trajectory till the banking and banking sector development from different perspectives. So it has made my task easier to go on from here. So I'll not have any presentation. A certain few things wanted to a particular problem, finding out some problems and maybe further looking into as a issues or some food for thought as a researcher or as an academician. So if we just think about the economic impact of COVID, Professor Muthu has said that it has been weakening the Indian economy. Let us have a glimpse with three competitive economies, say US, China, and India. So if you see the last 10 years average growth rate, then you find that USA is hovering around 2%. The highest growth rate during last couple of decades were 5% for US, and it went down to even negative in 2008. But now you see the average is 1.9% or 2%. If you see China, then China's also last 10 years average growth rate is hovering between 4 to 5%. Of course, in between they have gone to a very high 2 years they achieved 13% also, but the average is 4 to 5%. Whereas India is in a better position. India is last 10 years growth achieved 7%. So that way, if we consider the last 10 years economic growth, then India is in a better position even compared to China. Now, due to this pandemic, all across the economies are affected. So the India. But if you see the Indian effect and the effect of US and China, they are quite different. The US projects that its next year's economic growth, GDP growth, is bound to go to the negative region. However, China says that some sectors will be affected, but they estimate that they will still be positive, in the positive zone. India also have different views from different economies, but India also says that it would not be negative. It is expected that in 2020, the final rate will come at around 1.9% growth, GDP growth. And the next year, it does mean that in 2021, it will be 2.5%. And it is estimated that in 2022, it will be 4%. So it is projected that India will not be a negative growth economy, even it is so affected by the COVID. But China also says that it will also not go to the negative. Now, what we see is the competition, economic competition of India will be only and only with China. But if we see the fiscal deficit projection of Indian economy, we see that there is a 4.6% fiscal deficit for financial year 2020. And this deficit is very disturbing to see that it is estimated to 13.3% for financial year 2021. So that is a very miserable fact and very miserable figure. If these estimates comes true, then the Indian economy is going to have a very bad show. So though we will have a growth of positive, maybe 2.5% or 4%, and if we take average of average, then it may be 3% for next 2 years. But the fiscal deficit is going to hit the Indian economy in a very bad way. And probably that will give a disadvantageous position to India compared to China. So now the question is how Indian economy can revive and compete with China. There is a positive vibe. There is a small positive vibe that, I don't know, that is still in news, that there are many companies withdrawn their operations from China and they are eyeing on establishing their manufacturing base in some countries, and India is in the first list with them. If that is true, probably that is one kind of positive effects that will have, and which will tackle the fiscal deficit kind of thing to some extent. Now, why India is going to be affected in near future is that there are some sectors which are very important and fastest growing for India. Who are the sectors? Which are the sectors? They are trade, hotels, transport, communication, financing, insurance, real estate, business services, maybe knowledge process, knowledge KPO or BPO, and social and personal services. So these services are very important and fastest growing sectors, fastest growing services in Indian economy, which constitute 60% of Indian GDP contribution. So if they are affected, then majority of the GDP contributors will be affected. And we know very well that the major industries that were affected is the service industry, the hotel, hospital industry, transportation industry. All these sectors have been affected very badly. So India is in that way in a bit tight position, in a bit disadvantaged position, because the main contributors of the GDP are affected by this COVID pandemic. Secondly, is agricultural, forestry and allied services. So in agricultural, forestry and fishing and allied services, they contribute 12% to Indian GDP. And we know that this COVID has affected very badly the fishing, forestry and agriculture. Thirdly, the manufacturing sector, and manufacturing sector contributes 15%, about 15% to the Indian GDP. So we also know that manufacturing sectors are affected, but the manufacturing sector's production effect is not that very impactable, because during this time the demand for manufacturing products have also gone down. So that way the effect of manufacturing product will not be as the effect of agriculture and effect of trade and industries and other services. Now, if we see the country's wealth pie, the pie of the country's wealth, then we find that 80% of the country's wealth is with the 10% of rich people. 80% of the country's wealth is with 10% of rich people. On the other hand, 60% of the wealth of the country, 5% of the wealth of the country is with the 60% people. So if this is the situation, then probably India will have to change the pie to start from here, to to go from here with the, with the tagline of the, Sabke Saath, Sabke Vikas. So now we see that the majority of the people are poor and the majority of the people are going to be hit, going to get the hit from this country's wealth. The majority of the poor, this is what I have not said in terms of the poverty. We know that poverty is being reduced due to some measures due to this recent couple of times, and it has gone down to 30%. That's very good effort. But I'm talking about majority of the poor in the sense that confinement of the country's wealth. Now, if we see the labor force, now which is the another sector which has got the heat of the COVID-19. Out of the total labor force in India, 81% to 90% is in organized sector. There are different estimates, and these estimates says that some estimates says 81% and some estimates says 90%, up to 90%. Labor forces are in unorganized sector. And you all know I need not go into detail that how these unorganized sector laborers have been affected by this COVID-19. Majority of them have gone out of their basic minimum requirement. They have gone back to their own home places, native places, and there is uncertainty that they will come back to their work again. So the majority of the workforce will be out of job, out of income. So agriculture small farmers and allied sectors, and also majority of the workers, labor force, which are in the unorganized sectors, is getting the heat worse. And this will bring down the demand of the market products and services. Now, as a student of commerce and economics, we understand. Then understand that the supply has to be responded by proper demand. Then only there will be surplus. Now here we find that the demand has reduced. Demand of the products, demand of the services is going to be reduced. It has already been reduced, but it is going to be further reduced. But why it is to be reduced? Because it is not supported by the purchasing power of the people. Except some people, the purchasing power has reduced. And purchasing power has reduced at different levels, not only at the level of roti kapra makan, at the level of other manufacturing products also. The demand for cars have reduced because no enough money is there with the people, those who wanted to buy a new car, because their services has gone down. You have also read the reports in the newspaper. It has come that the companies, the corporate houses, they have started a meeting like this in Zoom app, and they say, the boss says that from tomorrow onwards your services no more required. Your contract, employment contract is cancelled. This kind of reports are coming. So purchasing power at every level is coming down. But miserably the agriculture and the informal sectors. So when the production is coming down, so market is sinking. So market is not supporting the enough production and products. So market is sinking. Market is sinking. So there is no sales. There is no revenue for the companies. When there is no sales and revenue, then no employment. There will be taking of employees, no new hiring. As you know that there are also some reports that the business schools graduates and recent graduates, they are graduating and they have got the placement offers, and now companies are denying. So there is no fresh hiring. There is also job cuts. If there is job, there is a pay cut. So under this situation, so employment is going to be sinking, and with the employment sinking, there will be no income of people, disposable income of the people. And when there is no income, and there will not be purchasing power. When there is no purchasing power, there is no economic activity, there is no further production, there is no expansion of the any monetary transactions or economic activities. So this is a poverty trap, and under this poverty trap, the Indian economy is going to be rolled out. So this is a very important issue to be looked into. I don't have any answer to this, but then these are the issues that are to be looked at. Now coming to the government of India's effort, it is to be reckoned that the government of India is very nicely coping with the adversities of the coming out of the this pandemic, and it has rightly taken different strategies starting from the health to the economy. The big ever scheme of 20 lakh crore to different sectors is really a commendable job. Nowhere, I think, nowhere, and at no time in the history this kind of big effort has happened, and this government is really doing very good on that. But if I have to add a feeder to this scheme, so I would say that two things are very important. One is proper implementation of this package. Number two, putting more emphasis on creating the ecosystem. Just giving some money to the informal workers, just giving some money to the agriculturists will not serve the purpose. The purpose is to revive the purchasing power. What I see is there are a lot of supply-driven initiatives that have been taken by the government. A lot of money has been put in system, but the government must ensure and must see that whether there is a absorption capacity of this money in the economy, whether agriculturists are ready to absorb that money. Will it be used for really productive purposes? If it is not used for productive purposes, then probably this money is simply a kind of a short term relief to the beneficiaries, and it will not have a sustained sustained economic effect on the sectors. So a proper ecosystem should be required immediately to put in place. What do I mean by proper ecosystem? Proper ecosystem has to be the system which again completes a cycle, starting from the production to the investment again. The production starts from the investment, and it should also end in the investment or expansion of the business. So that business model has to be put in the agriculture, MSME, everywhere wherever they invest. So for example, in agriculture, I have seen that there are a lot of initiatives taken by the government for agriculture. I can name a few, but I don't know time will permit or not. So there are a lot of money. Total amount is 2 lakh crore has been given for additional credit through Kisan Credit Card. What does it mean? 2 lakh crore. So if this 2 lakh crore is given to the agriculturists, does it going to help the agriculture for good? It will help for some time. It is a relief, but this is a credit at the same time. We have to understand that it is given through credit card, Kisan Credit Card, and this is a credit. So when it is a credit, that has to bring in some profit to the agriculturists, to the farmers. How this profit will come? If they invest that amount properly, then only that will come. If they take a Kisan Credit Card loan and then they invest in their agriculture, and if they do not get the proper price, minimum basic price for their agricultural produce, how will they return the money to the bank? And you see, in India, the agriculture is the farmers are worst affected, people, even in non-pandemic situation. There are examples that truck loads of, tomatoes, truck loads of, potatoes have been thrown away sometimes when it is ample of production and there is no price. But whereas when we as a consumer buy it, still we buy it at 40 rupees kg of potato. So where is the market linkage? So it is not only money they require an ecosystem. They require some kind of other services also along with the money. There are also some money earmarked for cold storage. I have seen the infrastructure by the government, but that is very good. That is why I wanted to say that the proper ecosystem in a proper chain has to be there. There has to be credit support. There has to be a business model to be shown to them so that they can come out with a proper return of investment, so that they can tomorrow become a bigger agriculturist, so that they can come out of the small farmers to become a bigger agriculture. Number two, what we require there is the use of agri-tech. I'm just talking about the agricultural ecosystem. I can also talk about the MSME for that. So agri-tech is now important. Everywhere we know that technology is used. But this technology is used for the technological company. They are not coming down to the rural area. The long back, our the then president Kalam Saab say, and he has also pronounced one scheme called PURA, P-U-R-A. Many of you may remember P-U-R-A, provision of urban facilities in rural areas, P-U-R-A. So that PURA, his concept was very nice. I don't know where it has gone, and it has, I don't see that implementation of that. So if we can implement provision of urban services in rural areas, means PURA, that scheme of the idea of Professor Kalam, that would be nice of it. So there will be some agri-tech, means using technology for agriculture. Say for example, how we spread. We have here in Assam, you will see a lot of tea gardens, and there are a lot of workers here. And you will see that after 70 years of the our independence, the situation they're living in, the life they're leading, the laborers, is very pathetic. But there is no, yes. So there is no problem, and nowhere we find. I don't know, maybe in Punjab some of the facilities are used, but then they're also not going to that scale innovations in agriculture, which will reduce the cost in long run, and this will relieve the farmers to come in a better business model. So there are a lot of ecosystem here. Again, the market has to be there. We have to link the market to the farmers, but there is no proper step in taken. So proper marketing system has to be there. So how that proper marketing system is to be there in that case? So there may be some instructions from support, policy support from the government. The minimum price has to be guaranteed, is to be reached to the market. Another concept here I have not seen the mention I have not seen in the policy of the government is that the farmer producer organizations. The farmer producer organizations are actually working very nicely in many places wherever it is started. The farmer producer concept organizations is a concept which is a company or is a cooperative, is an organization formed by the farmers. So there is no actually middleman or less middleman, because of which they can take the benefit of the profit without sacrificing the margin. So even if at the lesser price they can sell the produce to the consumers, and they can earn higher interest of amount for from their produce without sharing it with the middleman, which actually takes the larger share. So that way, if there is a farmer producer organization, if there is a farmer producer organization, and if there is a federation of farmer producer organization which take care of the marketing through online platform, if they take care of the supply chain management through online platform, then probably the market will not be a problem for the farmers or agriculture. So I hope that these kind of new thoughts have to be brought in by the government, apart from giving simply money. So money is one, it is required, but then along with the money, all these ecosystem has to be developed by the government. So is the case of the MSME also. So actually I can go on, but then I think that there is a question of time also in questions or in discussion. We will take part again. But finally, I want to make a final comment, putting another few. Yes. Yes.
You can continue for 5 minutes, no problem.
Yes.
In 5 minutes you conclude. Thank you.
Yes. So this is one. So this so far whatever I have said is from economic point of view or economy point of view. We can have better discussions on that or extended discussion. But when it is a school of management sciences, so for the companies actually there are few new perspectives have come in from companies' point of view or from industry point of view. So what are the new challenges that they are coming is that the entire business model has to be changed now. Because the earlier business model is not going to work. People have gone, to digital mode now for each and every services during this last couple of 3 months, and now they are to some extent, fall in love with the digital kind of environment. So, and it is also sure that this COVID-19 is not going to go very soon. It will stay with us for some time. So now the business model has to be changed a little bit with the changing paradigm. But that change management is very important for the companies now. Change management is not only the business model, but change management with the changing the employee relations. Using technology, there's a change, great change. Then if they go immediately to the technology, then how the labor problem will be solved? Is it so that they will entirely take away all the employees and they will go to high level technology? Then there is a problem, and it cannot be so rude. The company cannot be so rude that they will say bye bye to all the companies. So there's a great change management is going to come. One has to be very careful. Then next is sustainability and resilience. The company must put in the boards another agenda for the boards to think about the sustainability and resilience. Sustainability in two senses. One is environmental sustainability and another is financial sustainability. In environmental sustainability, particularly when you talk about the ethics, corporate governance and sustainability, from that point of view, what I suggest is very important to maintain the environmental sustainability friendly policies now onwards. For example, now there is a report that now Ganga has been very clear, crystal clear waters are coming into Ganga, which was an issue for last, I don't know how many decades. People did not see the clear water coming through Ganga. So now, is it possible for the companies to take some policies so that this clarity or crystal clarity of the Ganga can be maintained for long? Air quality of the India, air quality of the India and the entire world has come down, which was an issue for quite a few decades. So now, can we maintain this air quality for good? Can companies, can industries think about in that way? So that's why I say the change of business model with the sustainability, not only environmental sustainability but financial sustainability also should be taken care of. And the resilience. Resilience means this kind of epidemic, this kind of problems may come, or maybe different kind of problems may come, but how the companies can be resilient to those problems. And even for the economy also, government also, this resilience is necessary. By now we can conclude that the government is not, India is not, ready for some health issue. Means health infrastructure of the, Indian government, or for that matter, the world anywhere, was not sufficiently maintained. So it is now time to think about this sustainability and resilience in all fronts. Maybe government, maybe corporate, maybe non-government organizations, etc. So entire process has to be, entire business model of the government or at the company level, the entire process has to be re-engineered. So with this, I would like to conclude for now. I can come again if there is quiz. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Just let me gist out what Professor Das mentioned. He mentioned about 3 economies he compared between US, China and India. And he mentioned that last 10 years, the economic growth of India is now in a better position as compared to US and China. And he also mentioned about there is a change in the GDP, and which is dependent on the service sector, because we are 60% of our GDP is dependent on our service sector. And he also mentioned about that the country's 80% of the wealth of the country is in the hands of 10% of the people. So that focus has to be there for the motto that has been given, Sabke Saath, Sabke Vikas. And in the present scenario, he mentioned in the COVID scenario, the purchasing power has been reduced, and the demand also has been reduced because of the change in the purchasing power. And particularly in agriculture sector, the condition is very precarious. So emphasis should be given for reviving this purchasing power. And we need to have a proper ecosystem focusing on our agriculture, which is our main thing. And he also mentioned about the agri-tech scheme, where we can use technology for our agricultural growth. And in agriculture, we can use online marketing and supply chain if it is required. And we need to change our business model. Thank you, sir. So we will now go for the question answers. There are a number of questions we have received. Let me just list out the whole thing. The first question comes from Kiran Saurabh Das. He's asking to Professor Muthu, is asking, how does the inflation rate affect the GDP?
Yes, sir. Can I answer now?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Kiran, inflation, you know well about that inflation, it is mainly related to the supply of money. So if too much of money chasing a very few goods, then we normally call it as that inflation. So controlling the money supply only, managing that efficient inflation, it is one part. If overinflation also leads to that production and supply, and underinflation also leads to this production and supply. So that efficient management of the money supply, that is inflation, this price management is required. That only that helps that end user to participate more in the market. That balance the demand and supply, automatically it improves the GDP. So that is inflation and the GDP very well related.
Thank you, sir. So another question comes, the name is not given, anonymous. So how will the pandemic change is going to affect the higher education? In brief, you have to say. Of course, a lot of things can happen in higher education.
The question is for me or Mr. Das, sir?
How Professor Das?
It is
Professor
for me,
Das.
sir. If it is
Hey,
me,
Professor
I
Das.
can.
Oh, you can also answer, no problem.
Okay.
It is a general question.
So regarding the higher education, the physical way of conducting the classes and the physical academic activity, for some extent, it is going to be affected. And putting 50 students, 60 students in the class and accommodating more students in the hostels and all going to be the problem, because we have to maintain some social distancing. Professor Das just now mentioned about that how long this pandemic. This pandemic is not going to over by nearby. It will take its own time, and we have to accustom to live along with that. So in the case of higher education, according to me, these kind of e-platforms, parallelly we have to operate to teach, to train, to conduct all kind of academic activities. These kind of e-platform, online platform mode of education also in a parallel way we have to operate. And the physical form of education also, that with less numbers we have to operate up to certain time, because it is going to affect the higher education also in a different way. The physical one-to-one contact between the teacher and the students, the mass contact between the teacher and students is going to be that a very big problem. That is going to be the problem. So this alternative mode is the answer for me. Sir Das, sir, if you have any answer, please. Professor Das, please.
Yes, it was a nice answer actually. Just I would like to add to that there are greater challenges of economic education system of India now. First one is because of the COVID, we have already witnessed a great change of education system. Immediately we had to switch to the online or non-physical mode. So now it is actually already there with the many other countries, that they had used the alternative mode of education, and that is called blended learning mode. So in blended learning mode, what happens is that there is a combination of face-to-face mode and the online mode. It's not entirely online.
Yes, sir.
It will be some face-to-face mode and some online mode. But when we did now, we are doing now, what we are doing is whatever is not covered in the class, we are just making some videos and giving to the students either, or we are having live classes like this webinar, or we are having some other different modes of sharing the online. But we do not have a tailor-made course which will ensure the seamless learning for the students from day one to the day end. That is not there, but that is important, and that is going to happen now. There will be a great change of approach of the education, that is teaching to. So far what we are doing is teacher is the center and the students are at the backstage. But now what will be there is, and teacher will take the backstage, and from back they will monitor, they will mentor. So the role of the teacher will now going to change with the intervention of the technology, with the technological disruption, that we will have more of kind of guide, we will have more of mentors, we will have more of facilitators than direct teachers. So another challenge this COVID is going to bring us is the competition of the universities, competition of the educational institutions around the globe. Earlier also there, but now it has made it clear to all the learners that you have a lot of opportunities and a lot of choices around the world to take education. Now you can take a course from Oxford University. Now you can take a course from Harvard University if you have a quality. And it doesn't require to be present there for 2 years and spending lakhs of rupees. The same kind of education, quality education you can get. So now thing is that we have to compete. The Indian education system has to compete with all the country world's best educational institutions in universities in terms of giving the education. Tomorrow it may happen so that a person from Delhi University, he will leave the Delhi University and he can take a course from Oxford University at the same time, same kind of degree without spending that much money. If they do not like my class in the classroom, then they can take the substitute class from online, from a different university, from London Business School. And there is a change going to happen, and it is happening that the credit system, credit transfer system, if you can take a course of a particular X and you will get exemption from course Y from my program. So that is already done in the Indian system. So that competition is going to happen very soon. So as an educator, we have to be very competitive and we have to change the mode. We must embed technology with our education, and not in just simply giving webinars or giving online trainings, but systematically taught and designed curriculum from day one to day end, along with the learning that is happening to the learners. And for that, there is an approach. The approach is called community of learning, community of inquiry, COI. The COI, Community of Inquiry, is done by one professor in Athabasca University, Canada. And it is experimented in different universities. And it was found that the learning becomes better. Learning becomes a joy. Learning becomes interesting through the COI, Community of Learning mode of learning. And that is one actually mode which comes under blended learning. And I hope that Commonwealth of Learning, you must know all, the Commonwealth of Learning is also encouraging the universities and education institutions to go for blended learning. And even in our traditional system, even if we have the current education system like more face-to-face classroom, then also it will be useful for us. Suppose in terms of usefulness, I would like to share, suppose I have gone for 5 days leave from my institutions to somewhere else for doing some assignment in some other universities or for my personal leave. Even then I can continue the teaching learning process by using the blended learning mode, by giving my recorded lecture, by giving online lecture from the place where I am there, by giving some assignment to them, by giving activities in the discussion forum, by giving some other synchronized and asynchronized activities, so that the courses, the learning process doesn't get suffered in absence of the particular teacher in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now my next question is from Sagar Kumar Patra. He is asking to Professor Muthu that Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana, how is it going to help the startup business?
Which business, sir? Startup.
Startup, new business.
Yes.
Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana, that is there.
Yeah, government, it is a government sponsored scheme, sir. Yeah, it is one of the government sponsored scheme. So the financial institutions like bank, they are offering that lending to those who are having the good proposals for the startups. If you have the good proposals, business proposals with the suitable the business model, appropriate model, and having adequate market opportunities and profit opportunities, definitely you can avail the finance under this scheme from the financial institutions. So according to me, that it is one of the best scheme for availing finance from the financial institution for doing the startup. But the only condition is a good startup proposal is required, and the feasibility and viability of the project is very much required. Based on that lending institution consider the request and sanction that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Another question by Suhas is how the entrepreneurs can utilize their idea in critical situations.
For me, sir,
Yes.
how that entrepreneur use the idea in the critical situation.
Critical situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So normally innovative ideas comes only at the time of that critical situations. Whenever we are facing that crisis and the critical situations, at that time we have to explore an innovative ideas, innovative method of production, innovative method of marketing, innovative method of availing the finance, innovative method of supply chain. So innovation is the answer. So we have to identify the innovative methods. That is why I have mentioned about these online classes. Das are also mentioned. And for education, Das are mentioned, I also mentioned. Higher education, innovative, technology-based alternative solutions are available. Similarly, for each and every area, there are alternative, innovative solutions are available. So identify that opportunity, that identification, and explore the possibilities that by adopting the creativity that give the solution to that. So entrepreneurs are having good number of that opportunity. Just now mentioned about DASA. Now some of the orders from China, that the possibilities are coming to India because textile industries and some of the industries, there are very good opportunities are available here for the entrepreneurs. So for the entrepreneurs, opportunities are available. A new way of models, business models, they have to explore. New project proposal they have to prepare with the creative ideas to fulfill the requirements of the end user. That will give the fruitful results.
Sir, is there any financial or economic model for better result in the pandemic?
Financial and the economic model. Sir, if you ask that question, I can say that is why I have mentioned India that having a very good ethics, cultural system, and the basic value-based system. With that good culture, with adopting the appropriate values, if any model you can adopt by applying the appropriate, the available technology. Now, the technology-based solution is going to, that to digital-based technology solution-based model, that going to provide lot of good opportunity. Since I belong to the technology department, I could say that artificial intelligence technology-based new business models, you can do that work at your home also. Data analytics based, that blockchain technology based, Internet of Things, IoT based, that is one opportunity, technology based. Number two, agri based, as Dasar mentioned about the strongness in agriculture, I also pointed out, agri based, a new model of business with appropriate that supply chain storage models according to the requirements in the market. That is second. Then this other industries, medical, pharma, textiles, and other industries also having that opportunity. So we can't say this is the model, that is the model. You study the market, assess the requirements, accordingly you design the model, that will give the results. So it is not easy to say the model over that one-to-one. You have to conduct the study in your area, the requirements, what kind of problem faced by the people, what kind of problem faced by the business people. That problem only you have to identify. Problem gives a new opportunity. So now a lot of problems, how to address the problem, think about it, that gives a new model. Sir,
Can I come in just for one sentence here?
Please, sir.
Yeah. So nicely answered by Professor Muthu. So the question that how the entrepreneur should function in this crisis. So my feeling is that for an entrepreneur, any time is a crisis time.
Yeah.
And they should be ready to work always in crisis. So if they think that this is the right time and a very comfortable time for entrepreneurship, then that will not happen.
Yes.
Because entrepreneur is a person who takes risk.
Risk taker.
Without risk, entrepreneur doesn't happen. So every time is a crisis time, and every time is an opportunity time for entrepreneur. A line of in a report I just would like to share with you for entrepreneur is that there is an estimate that 120 million workers of India will be required to be retrained as a result of wider implementation of artificial intelligence and automation.
Yes.
Within next 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Within next 5 years, 120 million workers in India has to be retrained. Now, for a potential entrepreneur, it is an opportunity.
Yes.
For someone, it may be a risk or crisis that I will have to lose the job because I do not know what is artificial intelligence, because I do not know what is automation. And there may be the loss of job, there's a crisis. But in that crisis, the entrepreneur can think about starting a training venture, maybe on online, maybe or app-based, maybe something, I don't know. But he can look for this as an opportunity to train 120 million. Even if he or she trained 10% of it, it is 12 million people. It's a huge business, man. This is one just example. So I am saying that entrepreneurs, time is any time is a good time. Okay. Number two, talking about the business model or financial model for the economy to revive or so. I'd like to share that India is having two great type of resources. One is natural resources. Number two is human resources. If the projects are formulated, if models are formulated using proper human resource for efficient use of natural resources, I think that would give a good caution to the Indian economy to tackle these kind of situations in future. Think global, work local should be the model of India now. Because you will see that in many villages now, people have gone to the cities. There is a migration towards the city, want of job for rupees 5,000 to 10,000 rupees. A lot of people. Whereas, if they are used properly in their own villages, they can earn 3 times of that per month. 15,000, earning 15,000 is not a big deal in a village. If there is a proper support system, I again say that if there is a model of, Dr. Kalam, Pura model, obviously using local resources. Now, what is in many places, what we see is in the field, only one time cultivation is done. Why not 3 times? So why not 2 times cultivations can be done with same land? Because there is no gain from the agriculture. That's why people are not doing. But how can we not maintain a policy which will turn this loss into profit for them? There are other resources like lot of flora, fauna is there. We are talking about now there is Ayurvedic science, Ayurvedic botany. Okay, we can have medicinal plants here. We can use the natural resources, forest-based resources, and we can develop business models for them. And we can talk about filling the local demands first. If one state can fulfill all the local demands produce in that particular state without letting the money go to other states, probably that would be the best model now. This Atmanirbhar, not in the case of India as a whole, but Atmanirbhar in the case of every state, every region, every taluka, every block. If we think about that way, probably that will be the best solution. But it is not possible to produce all the things that you require in a particular district or in a particular region or particular state. There will be interstate, transportation of the goods and services. That is there. That has to be there. But then I'm talking about that whatever is possible in a particular region, particular state should be produced there itself. So that will be one first model of the economy that would be making us resilient and sustainability. If that would have been there, today the labor problem, this unorganized sector, labor's misery would not have or would have eased to great extent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now it is the next question is from Baroda Mahapatra. He's asking to Professor Muthu. His question is your suggestion regarding the customers, those who are thinking for a loan from bank and investing in banks. So what will be the scenario after this?
So the question related to suggestion to the customer, those who are availing, those who wants to loan from the bank, am I right?
Loan from bank and investing in banks.
Okay. So if the customer, those who wants to avail the money loan from the bank, what they have to do is, my suggestion to that customer is, you please prepare a viable proposals, acceptable proposals. Then only the banker can accept your proposals. Bankers always ready to finance the acceptable, viable, feasible proposals. So my suggestion is the customer, those who wants to borrow the money from the bank, you please submit your requirements in the form of proposals in a genuine, acceptable form. Definitely banker will accept. Okay, it is number one. Number two, if you want to invest the money into the bank, what is your suggestion? That is the question. So if you want to invest the money, then you please consider your duration. How long you are going to do the investment? Number one, whether it is short-term or long-term investments. Then your purpose of investment. So what is the purpose of that investments? Then when you want to get back that investment, then what is the return? What kind of return? Now, how much is the return you want to that expect from the investment? These are all the points the customer normally should get considered before investing the money. Not only to the bank, there are so many avenues are available for investment. Accordingly, the customer has to select the avenue for the investments. So if you want to avail the loan, your proposal will speak about your requirements. That will help give the answer. If you want to invest the money, that the purpose of the investment will speak about that. That will tell you the best avenue for that investments. That is my answer for that questions.
Another question relating to that, sir. Is it wise to invest now in equity sector?
Which sector, sir?
Equity sector, equity market. Equity market.
Equity
stock market.
Sir, that equity market or that in real estates or in the bank deposit or the debt market or in gold. The thing is that opportunities are always available, profitable opportunities are available in all the markets. I want to share one best example. In 2008, this market index indicators, performance indicator, Nifty, as well as the Sensex of the BSE, you know that time that indicator was very, very low. Investors hesitate to get into that equity market at that time. One of my friend, since I'm management faculty, he called me and suggest me to invest in the market. It is a right time, because that time the market indices and all the prices and all very, very, very low. So you please select the sectors, and with appropriate portfolio, you invest the money. After some time, definitely you will get a better return, because in these sectors, there is a lot of scope for improvement like that. He suggested. In 2008, I followed his suggestion and invested. Out of that, later in the year 2015, that helped me a lot to gain more at the time of selling that investment, and benefited a lot. Still, I'm maintaining some of that. See, what I want to say that, again, crisis always creates some opportunity for investment also. Even in investment equity market also, good opportunities available for investment now. Select the best, apply the best portfolio, invest. Definitely that will give a better return to you. Thank you. Next, sir. Next, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Now, I will hand over to Bhavani the formal vote of thanks, because
Sir, please, one question asked by one of my alumni in that Q&A box. The question is related to that IT infrastructure. Are we ready for online classes with regard to IT infrastructure? That is a question asked by some of my alumni in that Q&A box. I noticed. I want to give answer to them. What he has mentioned is a lot of issues distracting the students with some games and any other that some other mode at the time of using the Wi-Fi in the classroom. Sir, even now I want to say, if we switch on to the another mode, some kind of issues, especially related to IT infrastructure, network, and bandwidth, and all problems are there. But we try to find out the best way to utilize. There are 3 A's I want to give the answer to that. One is, so you have to accept, you have to adopt, then you have to apply. So now, during the changing situation, you have to accept the changes, adopt the changes, and apply accordingly. That will give the appropriate answer to you. So regarding the online classes, first you accept, adopt, and apply. The 3 A's will give a better answer to you. Now the thing is, young people, young students, 100% students having the mobile phone, smartphone. Smartphone users are more in numbers now. But the utilization of smartphone, most of them used for TikTok video and some other things. If they would have used that smartphone in a better way for these kind of activities, that will give the better result. So utilization is the point. That is why I mentioned the 3 points related to my own student. That question put it in the QA. Sorry, sir, I took much time. Anup, sir, please.
Sir, thank you. Thank you. Now I hand over to Bhavani for the vote of thanks. Up to Bhavani.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. On the outset, I would like to thank Professor Manoj Ranjan Naik, the founder head Shiksha Anusandhan, for facilitating us to organize this MDP. The program would not have been successful without the panel members. We are honored to have Professor S. Sudulai Muthu, my teacher, who is Professor and Head, Banking Technology, Pondicherry University, and Professor Debabrata Das, Professor, Department of Business Administration, Tezpur University. We thank Business Standard for providing such a wonderful platform. For this MDP, we personally thank Mr. Mahapatra, Mr. Agnello and his team for immense support. I sincerely thank my Dean, Professor Samantrai, and other faculty members for their support. Last but not least, we are grateful to have such wonderful audience. So today's program is completely dedicated to the economy. So we are planning another FDP or MDP in recent days, which will focus typically on capital markets. So many questions I have seen, many questions are equity investment, equity market investment. So that type of issues we can resolve with recent days. We are trying to have one or more MDP in recent days. Once the schedule will be fixed, then we'll let you know about this. And thank you very much. Thank you again for joining with us. Now I hand.
Thank you, Bhavani and
Yeah.
Anukumar sir and Business Standard for having given us an opportunity and
Yes, sir.
to provide an opportunity to that connect professors like Das sir from Jeshpur University and Anup Kumar and other Business Standard people. I'm happy to connect Das sir. Sir, we will meet some other many occasions later. Happy
Sure.
to meet you, sir, in this platform. And Professor Anup
Yes,
Kumar sir and Manoj and Babani, thank you. I'm happy you are working good, and I want to bless you and congratulate you and do it well. Huh? God bless you, my dear son. God bless you, sir.
So this
sir.
forum, this forum has given an opportunity for a teacher and a student connection,
Yes.
and it's indeed Mr. Bhavani Shankar, Dr. Bhavani Shankar got the blessing from his teacher amidst 150 faculty who have joined here. They would also be witnessing it. So Business Standard is so delighted to have had a wonderful session, well coordinated and moderated by Professor Anup Kumar Samantrai, the Dean of IBCS. And thanks to Dr. Bhavani Shankar Rao for excellently convening this session with the wonderful panelists, Professor Dr. Sudale Muthu, Professor and Head of Department of Banking Technology, School of Management, Pondicherry University, and Professor Debabrata Das, the Professor, Department of Business Administration, Jeshpur University. So thank you for all the wonderful insights, and we look forward to more association with the wonderful faculty like you. So once again, I thank you for the wonderful opportunity. I also thank the Bhubaneswar team of Business Standard for coordinating this event. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thanks to
Thank
all.
you all.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all. Thank you.
In some other occasions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.